People often call me cold, but I prefer the term stoic. I'm Shelby Warren, 36 years old, and I work as a biomedical equipment technician. My job is simple: diagnose problems, fix them efficiently, and move on. No drama, no unnecessary complications. I apply the same philosophy to my personal life. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. I take pride in being completely debt-free. While my co-workers complain about mortgage payments and credit card interest, I sleep soundly in the 1953 bungalow I inherited from my Uncle Raymond 3 years ago. It's small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that hasn't been updated since Carter was president. The exterior paint is peeling in places, revealing layers of history like tree rings. The front porch sags slightly to the left, but the foundation is solid as bedrock, the roof doesn't leak, and it's mine, truly mine. No bank owns a single shingle. That particular morning, I was in the garage turned workshop, hands smudged with flux and dust, troubleshooting Uncle Raymond's old Macintosh MC 240 tube amplifier. It was a heavy hunk of steel, a relic from the 60s, with vacuum tubes emitting a dim orange glow like tiny, beating hearts. My work as a biomedical equipment technician had taught me that precision is survival, but with this amp, the requirement was patience. I was using a multimeter to check a few aging capacitors, the kind of hardware younger techs these days would simply toss out in favor of cheap, soulless digital chips. The acrid scent of solder and the distinct warmth radiating from the tubes filled the air, familiar, comforting smells that meant I was in control, solving problems with logic and meticulous care. Then my mother appeared. Marjorie Warren has a talent for materializing without warning, like a well-dressed ghost. At 62, she maintains the kind of appearance that requires constant maintenance: salon highlights every 6 weeks, manicured nails, outfits coordinated down to the jewelry. She stood in the doorway of my garage, not quite crossing the threshold, as if the grease and tools might contaminate her. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she reached out and lightly touched the chipped wooden window frame, running one perfectly manicured finger along the peeling paint. Then came the sigh, long, theatrical, heavy with manufactured pity. I'm just terrified that one day you'll wake up here, 50 years old, all alone, and realize the world has left you behind. Her voice was soft, concerned, poisonous. A woman needs a safe nest, Shelby, not a repair shop. I looked down at the ventilator's exposed circuitry, then back at her. This house is perfectly safe, Mom, structurally sound, paid off. That's more than most people can say. That's not what I mean. She stepped back, wrapping her cardigan tighter around herself, as if my lifestyle choices were contagious. You're so young still. You should be building something, growing, not just existing in this time capsule. In that moment, I understood with crystal clarity. My family doesn't see me living. They only see a broken machine that needs to be repaired, according to their standards. A woman approaching 40 without a husband, without children, without granite countertops, clearly malfunctioning, clearly in need of intervention. I'll see you Saturday, she said, referring to my birthday dinner. Please try to wear something nice. And Shelby, keep an open mind. Your father and I have put a lot of thought into your gift this year. After she left, I stood there in the garage, that last sentence echoing like a warning bell. My parents do not do thoughtful gifts. They do strategic investments in their vision of who I should be. The first week of this silent siege culminated on Saturday with the inevitability of a dental appointment. I drove to my parents' house, a sprawling ranch-style home in the newer development across town, the kind of place with a 3-car garage and landscaping that requires professional maintenance. The dining room was decorated with balloons and a banner that said, "Happy Birthday, Shelby," in cheerful letters that felt accusatory. My father, Gerald, sat at the head of the table with his usual stern expression. At 64, he is a retired accountant who trusts numbers more than feelings and views emotions as inefficient budget items. My sister Sabrina arrived late, as always, making an entrance. At 38, she lives in a massive colonial with her husband and 2 kids, a house so large they had to furnish entire rooms with credit. She air-kissed my cheek and immediately began rearranging the place settings, asserting control over a space that wasn't hers. "Shelby, you look comfortable," she said, eyeing my practical slacks and button-down shirt. Translation: You look like you've given up. My brother Everett was already holding court in the living room when I arrived. At 33, he is the golden child, a realtor with an expensive haircut, a watch that probably cost as much as a decent down payment, and a smile that could sell ice to penguins. He is the kind of person who calls everyone pal or chief and makes you feel like you're in on some exclusive joke. There's the birthday girl. He pulled me into a hug that smelled like expensive cologne. Big 36, hitting your stride, sis. Dinner was pleasant enough on the surface. Herb-crusted beef tenderloin with a red wine reduction, haricots verts with toasted almonds, and dauphinoise potatoes, small talk about Sabrina's kids and Everett's latest sales. But I could feel it, that undercurrent of something planned, rehearsed. They kept exchanging glances. My mother kept touching my arm and smiling too brightly. Finally, as dessert was being cleared, my father cleared his throat. "Shelby, your mother and I have been thinking a lot about your situation," he began, and my spine stiffened. "You work hard, you're responsible, but that house—" "It's a teardown waiting to happen," Sabrina interjected helpfully. "It has good bones," I said evenly. "It has old bones," my mother corrected, her voice dripping with concern. "And we want you to have something better, something worthy of you." She slid a large envelope across the table. It was thick, expensive looking. My father watched me with an expression that suggested this was a quarterly report he was particularly proud of. I opened it slowly. Inside were glossy, professional 3D renderings, multiple pages of them. My little bungalow, transformed, walls knocked down to create an open-concept living space. A kitchen with an island and pendant lighting. A master suite with a walk-in closet. Sleek, modern, utterly unrecognizable. Attached with a paperclip was a receipt. A deposit, already paid, to some design firm. $1,500. We've already gotten the ball rolling. My mother said, tears actually welling in her eyes. "We just want you to have a fresh start, honey. A real home." My hands felt numb holding the papers. This was not a gift. This was a blueprint for dismantling my life. Everett stood up, transitioning seamlessly into presentation mode. He pulled out his phone, swiping through additional images. "Here's the thing, sis. You're sitting on serious equity. That property, even in its current condition, has value. But you're letting it just sit there, not working for you." He leaned forward, his voice dropping into that confidential tone that probably closed dozens of deals. "Open concept is everything right now. Buyers want flow, they want light, they want modern amenities. With the right updates, we could increase your property value by 40%, maybe 50%. "I'm not selling," I said quietly. "Of course not," my mother rushed to assure me. "This is about making it yours, making it beautiful." "And here's the best part," Everett continued. Building momentum like this was the climax of his pitch. "You don't need to spend your own cash. We've already talked to a guy at the bank. Great guy. Really helpful. You can use the house itself to secure a HELOC. A home equity line of credit. You've got all this equity just sitting there doing nothing. It's dead money, Shelby. This way, you access it, invest it back into the property, and everyone wins." I stared at him. "You want me to take out a loan?" "It's not really a loan," he said smoothly. "It's leveraging your asset, smart money management. You're basically borrowing from yourself." "Except, I'd owe the bank." "Well, technically yes, but—" "So it's a loan." Silence fell over the table. My father adjusted his glasses. "Shelby, we're trying to help you here. This is an investment in your future." "I'm debt-free," I said, each word precise and measured. "That house is paid off. Uncle Raymond left it to me free and clear. Why would I voluntarily put myself in debt?" "Because you're living like a hermit in a house that's falling apart." Sabrina burst out, her jealousy finally showing through the concerned sister facade. "Some of us actually care about our surroundings. Some of us want to build something." "I have built something," I replied. "Financial stability." My mother reached for my hand. "Sweetheart, we're worried about you. A woman your age, alone in that house, with no plans to settle down, no security beyond a job that could disappear tomorrow." "My job is secure." "Nothing is secure. my father said flatly. Except assets. And assets need maintenance. That house needs work, Shelby. You can't just ignore that. I looked around the table, at their faces, so earnest, so convinced they were rescuing me. My mother's trembling lip, my father's stern certainty, Sabrina's barely concealed smugness. Everett's encouraging smile, polished and professional, and I heard Uncle Raymond's voice in my head, clear as if he were sitting beside me. A gift with strings attached is actually a debt. Raymond had been the family outlier, never married, lived simply, worked as an engineer, and spent his evenings listening to jazz and reading. He had been the only one who never tried to fix me, who understood that contentment does not require constant upgrades. The family had tolerated him, mostly because he kept to himself and did not cause scenes. I carefully placed the renderings back in the envelope. "Thank you," I said, my voice neutral. "I'll think about it." It was the response of a person avoiding conflict, the path of least resistance. But as I drove home that night, the envelope sitting on my passenger seat like a ticking bomb, I felt the walls closing in. They were pressuring me to go from financially free to a bank debtor, all wrapped in the guise of love, and if I refused, I was ungrateful, stubborn, broken. I parked in my driveway and sat there for a moment, looking at my little bungalow, paint peeling, porch sagging, utterly, completely mine. The trap had been set. I just had not figured out yet exactly what they were hunting.
As the new week unfolded, the psychological campaign began in earnest. I was at work on Monday, calibrating an infusion pump in the ICU, when my phone buzzed. A text from Everett. "Check your email, sent you some reading material. Eye-opening stuff." During my lunch break, I found my inbox flooded. 7 articles, all forwarded by my brother, all with subject lines designed to trigger anxiety. How inflation is destroying home values. The hidden costs of deferred maintenance. Why millennial homeowners are falling behind. Old homes. Money pits or investment opportunities. Each email came with a personal note from Everett. "Thought you'd find this interesting," or "This really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?" The articles themselves were professionally written fear-mongering, the kind of content designed to make stable people feel like they were one decision away from financial ruin. I deleted them without finishing, but they kept coming. Every day, sometimes twice a day. Tuesday brought a text. "Hey sis, my bank contact says rates might go up next quarter. If you're thinking about that HELOC, now's the time. Want me to set up a meeting?" Wednesday. "Just drove past your place. Noticed the gutters are sagging on the east side. Those can cause serious foundation damage if you don't address them. Let me know if you need a contractor recommendation." He was relentless, professional. Each message carefully crafted to sound helpful while planting seeds of doubt. By Thursday, my mother had joined the campaign. She showed up unannounced, her favorite tactic. I came home from work to find her in my kitchen, surrounded by boxes. She didn't bother with a heads up. She just let herself in using the spare key I'd foolishly given her years ago for emergencies. Surprise! She beamed, like she had just solved world hunger. I was at the store, and I just couldn't help myself. These were on sale, and I thought of you. The boxes contained a massive stainless steel refrigerator, a convection microwave, and a dishwasher with more digital displays than my car. All beautiful, all expensive. All completely wrong for my 1950s kitchen. "Mom, these won't fit." "Of course they will. You just need to make some adjustments. Maybe take out that old pantry cabinet. You don't really use it anyway, do you?" "I use it every day." She waved this away. "Well, you can find another storage solution. The point is, these are quality appliances, Shelby. Modern, efficient. Everything your kitchen should have." I looked at the refrigerator box. The dimensions clearly stated it was 36 inches wide. My kitchen alcove was 32 inches. "It literally won't fit through the space," I said. My mother's face crumpled. "You're being deliberately difficult. I'm trying to help you and you're just throwing up roadblocks." "This is exactly what your father and I are talking about. You're so resistant to improvement, to progress. You'd rather live in discomfort than accept help." "I'm not uncomfortable. Look at this kitchen. She gestured around dramatically. The countertops are from the Eisenhower administration. The cabinets are particle board. The floor is... I don't even know what this floor is, but it's hideous. It's original linoleum. It's actually quite durable. It's poor, Shelby. You're living poor when you don't have to, and it breaks my heart. She left with a look of utter bewilderment, as if she simply couldn't fathom why I would choose to stay stagnant instead of embracing her version of progress. The appliances were still in their boxes, cluttering my small kitchen. The message was clear. This is your fault. Your stubbornness is causing this inconvenience. If you would just agree to the renovation, everything would be better. It wasn't until I heard the engine turn over that the realization finally clicked. I'd forgotten to demand the spare key back. I should have run out there. I should have stood my ground and taken it then and there. But the opportunity had already stalled. The weight of the day pressed down on me, and I just stood there, paralyzed by exhaustion. I told myself I would get it back next time, a calculation error I would soon regret. The visits continued over the next 2 weeks. Friday, she brought paint samples, 12 different shades of gray, all looking identical to my untrained eye. Sunday, she called 3 times to discuss window treatments. The gaslighting was subtle but constant. I was stubborn. I was living in denial. I was afraid of change. Each conversation chipped away at my certainty, replacing it with a gnawing doubt. Was I being unreasonable? Was my attachment to this house just fear masquerading as principle? By the middle of the second week, I caught myself looking at the 3D renderings again, late at night. They were beautiful, I had to admit. Clean lines, modern fixtures, the kind of space you would see in a magazine. Then I would remember the price tag. Not just the money, though, that was substantial, but the debt, the monthly payments, the surrender of my hard-won financial independence. Tuesday of the 3rd week, Everett called. "Hey, got a minute? I want to run some numbers by you." His voice had that forced, casual quality that meant he had rehearsed this. So, I did some calculations based on current market rates and renovation costs in our area. If you pull equity around $80,000, totally reasonable for your property, you could do the full renovation for about $65,000. That leaves you $15,000 buffer for unexpected costs, which is smart planning. $80,000 in debt, I said. Inaccessible capital, he corrected. And here's the thing with the improvements. Your property value could jump to $450,000, maybe $475,000. You're currently sitting at what, $320,000? $330,000? That's over $100,000 in value increase. Even accounting for the loan, you're net positive. Unless the market crashes. The market's solid, sis, especially in our area. People want move-in ready. They want modern. Trust me, I see the numbers every day. Something in his voice, too eager, too insistent, triggered my professional instincts. The same instincts that told me when a machine's problem was not what it appeared to be, when the obvious diagnosis was hiding a deeper malfunction. "Why do you care so much about this?" I asked. Pause. Just a beat too long. "Because you're my sister. I want you to be happy." And nothing. That's it. Family looks out for family. But the pause had told me everything. There was another layer here. Another motivation. That weekend, Nora Pierce saved me. Nora has been my best friend since college. She is 34, works as an urban planner for the county, and has a no-nonsense approach to life that matches my own. We have coffee every other Sunday, a standing appointment neither of us cancels unless absolutely necessary. I brought the renderings to the coffee shop, along with my growing folder of Everett's forwarded articles. I laid it all out on the table between our mugs. "My family wants me to renovate," I said. "They've already paid a design deposit. They want me to take out a HELOC for $80,000. Nora picked up the renderings, flipping through them with the practiced eye of someone who reads blueprints for a living. Her expression shifted from curious to confused to something darker. "Shelby," she said slowly, "when did your family give you these?" 3 weeks ago. Why?" She pulled out her phone. fingers flying across the screen. Her frown deepened. Because your entire neighborhood was approved for rezoning 3 months ago. She turned her phone around, showing me an official county document. R4, high-density residential. I stared at the screen, the implications not quite connecting. What does that mean? It means developers can now build apartment buildings and condos in your area, which means they're actively looking for properties to buy and tear down. They want the land, Shelby, not the houses. The dirt itself. The coffee shop seemed to tilt slightly. Tear down? Demolition permits have already been filed for 3 properties on your street. Developers are offering cash above market value because they're not buying homes. They're buying development opportunities. She looked at the renderings again, and her laugh was bitter. Nobody is going to pay extra for your new kitchen. These updates are completely irrelevant to anyone who's going to bulldoze the structure. The pieces began clicking into place, cold and precise as circuit connections. Everett is a realtor. He has access to zoning information, development plans, market trends. He knows about the R4 rezoning. He's known for months, which means pressuring me to spend $80,000 renovating a house that developers want to demolish is not investment advice. It's sabotage. He wants me in debt. I said aloud, the realization crystallizing. If I'm carrying a massive renovation loan, I lose my ability to hold out. I'd have to sell to pay it off. And who do you think would be the listing agent? Nora asked quietly. Of course, Everett gets his commission 3% of the sale price, plus whatever arrangement he has with the developer. And I would be trapped, forced to sell, to service debt I never should have taken on in the first place. My hands were shaking, not with anger, not yet, with the cold clarity of diagnosis. The problem identified, the malfunction exposed. He's my brother, I said. Nora reached across the table and gripped my hand. I know, I'm sorry. I sat there in that coffee shop, surrounded by the Sunday morning sounds of espresso machines and casual conversation, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The doubt, the guilt, the creeping sense that maybe I was being unreasonable, it all evaporated, replaced by certainty. My family was not trying to help me, they were trying to use me. And that changed everything. The Cold War turned hot as the calendar rolled into the 4th week of the siege. The 1-2 hour night shift at County General had been brutal. 2 ventilators down, 1 CT scanner throwing error codes I had never seen before, and a surgical team breathing down my neck because their anesthesia monitor decided to quit mid-procedure. By the time I clocked out at 7 a.m., my back ached and my hands smelled like disinfectant and machine oil. I should have known something was wrong the moment I turned onto my street. 3 bulging black trash bags sat at the curb in front of my house, tied with yellow drawstrings, sagging against each other like drunken sentries. I parked crooked in the driveway and left my work bag in the passenger seat. Trash day was not until Thursday. It was Tuesday. My stomach dropped. The spare key. The one I had not taken back from Mom when I had the chance. Fatal mistake. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open, and the smell hit me immediately, that artificial cloying sweetness of drugstore air freshener. The kind that comes in aerosol cans with names like Spring Meadow or Lavender Dreams. It coated the back of my throat, thick and wrong. The smell of machine oil was gone. The faint mustiness of old wood and paper, the scent that meant Raymond lived here, once erased. I walked into the living room like I was navigating a crime scene. The shelves were empty. Not just cleared, sanitized. Where Raymond's collection of vinyl records had stood in their milk crates, arranged alphabetically by artist, there was now a ceramic vase with fake sunflowers. Where his engineering magazines from the 90s had been stacked, their spines creased and pages dog-eared with his notes, there sat a mass-produced picture frame that said, "Home Sweet Home," in cursive script, the kind you buy at the supermarket for $6. Raymond's notebooks, the ones where he had sketched out circuit diagrams and written margin notes in his cramped handwriting, coffee stains blooming across the pages like fossils, they were gone. My hands went numb. "Oh, you're home." Mom's voice came from the kitchen, bright and cheerful. She walked out wiping her hands on a dish rag, smiling like she had just baked me cookies. She was wearing one of her pastel cardigans, the pink one with the pearl buttons, and her hair was freshly set. "I saw all of Raymond's old stuff sitting around," she said, gesturing at the shelves like she had just reorganized a linen closet. "It was getting so moldy, sweetheart. I was worried you'd get sick breathing in all that dust. So I cleaned it out while you were at work. Doesn't it look better? Now it finally looks like a real home." I could not speak. My throat had closed up, not with tears, but with something colder, harder. "I even found those old notebooks in the garage," she continued, oblivious. "Honestly, Shelby, I don't know why you were keeping all that junk. Raymond's been gone for 3 years. You have to move forward." Move forward, as if grief had an expiration date, as if memory was clutter. I turned and walked out the front door without a word. Mom called after me, confusion creeping into her voice, but I did not stop. I went straight to the curb and tore open the first trash bag. Vinyl records, their covers bent and scratched. Miles Davis. John Coltrane. Thelonious Monk. I pulled them out carefully, my hands shaking now, and set them on the grass. The second bag held the magazines, some of them water-damaged, pages stuck together. The third bag, Raymond's notebooks. I found them at the bottom, crumpled and coffee-stained, but intact. His handwriting stared up at me. Impedance-matching check transformer ratios. A circuit diagram for a tube amplifier. A grocery list that said bread, eggs, Miles Davis live album if they have it. This was not spring cleaning. This was erasure. Mom had not thrown away trash. She had thrown away Raymond. Thrown away the evidence that he had existed, that he had lived in this house, that he had mattered. And in doing so, she had thrown away the part of me that understood who I was, the part that came from him, not from her. I gathered everything I could salvage into my arms and carried it inside. Mom was standing in the living room, her smile fading into uncertainty. "Shelby, what are you?" I walked past her into my bedroom and locked the door. For 20 minutes, I sat on the floor surrounded by rescued relics, breathing slowly through my nose. Diagnostic mode. Find the problem. Identify the failure point. Implement the solution. The problem. My family believed they still had access to my life, to my space, to my choices. The failure point. I had allowed it by not taking back that spare key. The solution. Boundaries. Legal ones. I picked up my phone and called a locksmith. "I need a complete rekeying," I said when he answered. "Every lock in the house. How soon can you get here?" "I can be there by 11 a.m. "Perfect." This was no longer a family matter. This was trespassing. When the locksmith arrived, Mom was still in the house. She watched from the kitchen doorway as he worked on the front door, her expression cycling through confusion, hurt, and finally indignation. "Shelby, this is ridiculous. I'm your mother." "And this is my house," I said evenly. "Raymond left it to me, not to you, not to Everett, not to the family, to me. I was just trying to help. By throwing away his things without asking." She opened her mouth, closed it. For once, she had no script. The locksmith finished the front door and moved to the back. I paid him in cash and took the new keys, feeling their unfamiliar weight in my palm. When he left, I walked to the front door and held it open, looking at my mother. "You need to leave now." I did. "Shelby." "Mom, leave." She left, and when the door closed behind her, I turned the new deadbolt and listened to it click into place. The house was quiet. The fake flowers still sat on the shelf, garish and artificial, but Raymond's notebooks were safe in my room. His vinyl records were stacked carefully on my dresser, waiting to be cleaned and restored. I did not cry. I sat on the couch and stared at the empty shelves, calculating my next move. Because this was not over, not by a long shot. The silence of the new locks had only stood for 3 days when the call came, marking the start of the 5th week. Mom's voice on the phone was different this time, softer, conciliatory, with that practiced tremor she used when she wanted you to feel guilty. "Sweetheart, I've been thinking about what happened. I overstepped. I see that now." I said nothing, waiting. I want to make it up to you, she continued. I know we've all been pushing too hard, so I'd like to invite you to dinner. Nothing big, just you and me, and maybe you could meet Mark. He is the son of a friend, very successful. I think you'd really get along. Mark. A name I had never heard before, appearing conveniently in the middle of an apology. I should have said no, should have recognized the play immediately. But some perverse part of me wanted to see what they would try next, what shape the manipulation would take this time. Fine, I said. When and where? Oh, wonderful. How about Rosario's, Saturday at 7 p.m.? Rosario's was the nicest Italian place in town, the kind with cloth napkins and candles on every table, the kind of place you took someone when you wanted to impress them. Saturday came. I wore jeans and a clean work shirt, my version of dressing up, and arrived exactly on time. Mom was already there, seated at a corner table with a man I did not recognize. He stood when he saw me, extending his hand. Shelby, right? I'm Mark Sutton. Your mom's told me so much about you. Mark was polished in a way that immediately set off alarms. Mid-30s, expensive watch, hair gelled just enough to look casual but not unkempt. His handshake was firm, practiced. His smile showed too many teeth. Nice to meet you, I said neutrally, sitting down. Mom excused herself almost immediately. Just need to powder my nose, which should have been my warning sign. But I was already committed to seeing this through. Mark ordered wine without asking if I wanted any. He talked about himself for the first 15 minutes, his business, his recent vacation to Cabo, his thoughts on the real estate market. I nodded occasionally, eating my salad, waiting for the hook. It came during the main course. So, Mark said, leaning forward with renewed interest, Everett mentioned you own a property. There it was. I do, I said carefully. That's a great location. Really great bones for development. His eyes lit up the way predators' eyes light up when they spot wounded prey. Everett says you're sitting on a gold mine. I'm an investor. I specialize in duplexes and multifamily conversions. If we ended up together, I could help you develop a real project on that land. You wouldn't have to work so hard fixing machines anymore. We could turn that lot into something that actually generates passive income. I put down my fork slowly. Ended up together. The words hung in the air like a diagnosis. This was not a date. This was a pitch meeting. Mark was not interested in me. He was interested in my zoning rights. My R4, coded land, my potential. Mark paused to take a sip of his Cabernet, and for a second, the restaurant went quiet. In the polished dark wood of the wine cabinet behind him, I saw a flash of familiar movement, a reflection. 2 tables back, tucked into a shadowed booth, sat Mom and Everett. They weren't even pretending to eat. They were leaning in, their silhouettes cast against the glass like spectators at a high-stakes poker game. The whole thing crystallized. They had set this up. Not to apologize, not to reconcile, to monetize me, to turn my personal life into a business transaction with someone who saw me as an untapped asset standing between him and a commission check. I stood up. Shelby? Mark looked confused, his salesman smile faltering. I pulled $40 from my wallet and placed the bills on the table enough to cover my share of the meal. Then I looked directly at Mark, speaking loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Mark, tell Everett something for me. I don't look for business partners at a dinner table. I walked out before anyone could respond. Behind me, I heard Mom's chair scrape, heard her calling my name, but I did not stop. I got in my car and drove home with my hands steady on the wheel, my jaw tight, my mind already shifting into the next gear. Because this was not anger anymore. This was something colder, cleaner. When I got home, I did not cry. I did not yell. I brewed a pot of herbal tea, opened my laptop, and went to work. I pulled up the county public records portal. It is an unglamorous website, all beige backgrounds and clunky search bars, maintained by bored clerks and outdated software. But it holds truth undeniable, time-stamped, legally verified truth. Property records, court judgments, tax liens, business licenses, everything a person files becomes part of the permanent record. I typed in Everett's name. Everett James Warren. The results loaded slowly, line by line, and with each one my understanding sharpened. Warren Realty Group LLC, tax lien filed, amount $112,000. Civil judgment Warren, Everett J. versus Coastal Development Corp., ruling, defendant liable for breach of contract, amount $48,000. Notice of default, Wells Fargo Bank, property, 2847 Ocean View Drive, borrower, Everett J. Warren. I kept scrolling, more liens, more judgments. A pattern of missed payments, broken contracts, and desperate refinancing. My brother was not a successful businessman throwing family dinners and vacation photos on social media. He was drowning. His debts totaled over $160,000, and I was his life raft. A standard 3% commission wouldn't even touch the interest on his debt. This wasn't about a simple sale, it was a wholesale play. If Everett could leverage a renovation loan to force me into a distressed sale, he wasn't just looking at a commission, he was looking at a finder's fee that would make a serious dent in his mountain of debt. It wasn't a bonus, it was a way to keep the wolves from the door. It was his survival, the renders, the pressure, the dating trap. Even Mom's invasion of my house, trying to make it look market-ready. They needed me to sell, not wanted, needed. I sat back in my chair, the laptop screen glowing in the dark kitchen. Raymond's voice echoed in my memory, something he had told me years ago. Shelby, the difference between a good technician and a great one is knowing when the problem isn't the machine. Sometimes it's the operator. The problem was not my house. It was not my stubbornness or my inability to move forward. The problem was Everett, and the solution was already writing itself in my head. I closed the laptop and went to bed. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. Because now, I knew exactly what I was dealing with, and I knew exactly what to do about it.
The inevitable resolution arrived on a Saturday morning, exactly 6 weeks after this ordeal began. I received the text from Mom at 7:43 a.m. Family meeting at your place, 2 p.m. today. This has gone on long enough. No question mark. No, please. Just a command, as if I were still 16 and grounded for coming home past curfew. I texted back, fine, bring everyone. I wanted them all there. I wanted witnesses. By 1:45 p.m., I had transformed my dining room into an operating theater. The table was clear, except for one thick manila folder, positioned at the head my seat. No coffee brewing, no cookies on a plate, no background music to soften the edges. The afternoon light cut through the window blinds in sharp, clinical lines. They arrived in a convoy, Mom and Dad in their sedan, Sabrina in her SUV, Everett in his expensive convertible. I watched through the window as they congregated on the driveway, huddling like generals before a battle. Everett was gesturing, probably giving them the game plan. Sabrina nodded along. Dad crossed his arms, already committed to whatever narrative Everett had sold him. I opened the door before they could knock. Come in, I said flatly. Sit. They filed into the dining room with the nervous energy of people who thought they held all the cards. Mom smoothed her blouse as she sat. Sabrina chose the chair closest to the door escape route secured. Dad took his usual position across from the head of the table, arms folded, jaw set. Everett slid into the remaining seat, flashing that salesman smile that had probably closed 100 deals. Shelby? Mom started, her voice dripping with practiced concern. We're here because we love you. Stop. I remained standing, hands flat on the table. You're here because Everett told you I'm being unreasonable. You're here to apply pressure. You think if you all gang up on me, I'll cave and either sell the house or take out that loan to fix it up. You think I'm just being stubborn. Dad leaned forward. You're being irrational, Shelby. We've tried to help you for weeks, and you've thrown it back in our faces. This house is falling apart. You're sitting on a gold mine, and living like a... Like what, Dad? A poor person? Someone without standards? I pulled out my chair and sat down slowly, deliberately. Let me save us all some time. I opened the folder. The sound of paper sliding against paper was the only noise in the room. Evidence number 1. I pulled out Nora's zoning map and spread it across the table. The property lines were highlighted in yellow, the R4 designation circled in red marker. This house sits on R4 high-density residential zoning. Do you know what that means? Silence. It means whoever buys this land is not going to live here. They're going to bulldoze this house and build condos. 4, maybe 6 units. Maximum profit per square foot. I looked directly at Mom. So when you've been pressuring me to borrow $80,000 to renovate the house to make it presentable, you're asking me to light money on fire. Because the buyer does not care about granite countertops, they care about demolition permits. Mom's mouth opened, closed, opened again, but Everett said, "Everett knows. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. Everett is a realtor. He understands zoning codes. He knew this from day one." Everett's smile finally cracked. "Shelby, you're twisting." Evidence number 2. I slid a printed screenshot across the table. Mark's LinkedIn profile, his company website. Mark Sutton, real estate investor. Specializes in acquiring undervalued properties from motivated sellers. That's corporate speak for, I prey on people who do not know what they own. I let that sit for a moment. He's also Everett's business associate. They've closed 3 deals together in the last 2 years. Sabrina's eyes widened. "Wait, you set her up with your business partner?" "It's not like that," Everett said quickly. "Mark's a good guy. He just happened to be very interested in my house." I interrupted. "Funny how that works. You introduce me to a man who coincidentally wants to buy the exact property you've been pushing me to sell. What are the odds?" Dad's expression was hardening, but not toward Everett. Not yet. So what? Everett was trying to help you find a buyer. That's his job. Evidence number 3. I pulled out the printouts from the county public records portal. Tax liens, court judgments, payment deadlines. I laid them out one by one, like autopsy photographs. Everett Warren, outstanding tax liens totaling $112,000, a civil judgment for $48,000. Total debt, $160,000, not counting interest and penalties. I slid the top page directly in front of Dad. The county has scheduled a collections hearing for 8 weeks from now. If Everett does not settle or make significant payments before then, they can seize his assets. Garnish his wages. Put liens on anything he owns. I leaned back in my chair. He does not own anything. He leases the car, rents the condo. His entire net worth is tied up in commissions he has not earned yet. Dad picked up the document. His hands were not steady. I watched his eyes scan the numbers, the dates, the account balances. His face flushed red, then drained to a pale gray. "This sale," Dad's voice came out hoarse, "this sale wasn't about Shelby." "No." I looked straight into Everett's eyes. "It was about the commission on a $400,000 property. Add in whatever kickback Mark promised him for delivering a discount property, and suddenly Everett can make a dent in his debts. Maybe keep the county off his back for another 6 months." The silence in the room was surgical, clean, complete. Mom's hand fluttered to her throat. "Everett, is this true?" Everett stared at the table. His jaw worked, but no words came out. The golden boy had nothing to say. "You used us," Dad said quietly. "Dangerously. You used your mother and me to pressure your sister." "I was trying to help everyone," Everett's voice cracked. "Shelby doesn't even like that house. She said so herself. I thought if she sold it, she'd be happier, and I could fix my situation and—" "You thought you could manipulate me into saving you," I said. Each word landed like a scalpel. "You thought I was naive, sentimental. That I would believe the story about Mark being a nice guy who just happened to want a fixer-upper. You thought I would not check the public records." "I didn't know about the debts," Mom whispered. "Everett, why didn't you tell us?" "Because that would have required honesty. And honesty does not close deals." Dad stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. He looked at Everett like he was seeing a stranger. "Get out." "Dad." "Get out." Everett left first, his footsteps heavy on the porch stairs. Sabrina followed without a word, her face pale. Mom lingered, her hand hovering near my shoulder but not quite touching. "Shelby, You chose him," I said quietly. "Every time. You chose the version of the story that made him the hero and me the problem." She flinched. Then she left. Dad remained standing, staring down at the tax lien documents. Finally, he looked at me. "I'm sorry," he said. And for the first time in 6 weeks, I believed him. "I know." He nodded once, then walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. I sat alone at the dining table, surrounded by evidence. The afternoon light had shifted, softer now. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder, and set it aside. It was done. The season began to turn, and another 6 weeks passed in relative silence. The fence was finished. Not professionally installed. I had done it myself over 3 Saturdays, one section at a time, with lumber from the hardware store and a borrowed post hole digger. It was not perfect. The posts were not exactly plumb, and the gate squeaked when it swung, but it was mine, built with my hands, on my timeline, with my money. I stood in the backyard with dirt under my fingernails and surveyed my work. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that would have been too saturated for a photograph. The newly planted fruit trees, 2 apples, 1 cherry stood like skinny sentinels along the property line. They would take years to bear fruit, but I had years. Inside, the house looked different. Not because I had renovated, I had not. The kitchen still had the old laminate counters. The bathroom tile was still that unfortunate shade of mint green. But I had cleaned, deeply. I had pulled Uncle Raymond's records out of the corner where I had shoved them after the invasion, wiped each one down with a microfiber cloth, and arranged them on the shelf in alphabetical order. Jazz. Blues. A little classical. His handwriting was still visible on some of the sleeves. Raymond Hayes, 1987. I made coffee, the good stuff, beans I had ground myself, and carried the mug into the living room. The chair was exactly where it had always been, angled toward the window. I sank into it, feeling the familiar give of the cushions, the way the wooden armrests fit perfectly under my forearms. The turntable sat on the side table, waiting. I selected a record at random, Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, and slid it from its sleeve. The vinyl was cool and smooth under my fingers. I placed it on the platter, lifted the tone arm, and gently lowered the needle. The crackle came first. That warm, imperfect sound of analog technology doing exactly what it was designed to do. Then the music. Soft trumpet, brushed drums, bass notes that vibrated through the floorboards. I closed my eyes and breathed. Everett had not contacted me since the intervention. According to Sabrina, who had sent one awkward text 3 weeks ago, he had taken a job with a brokerage 2 towns over and was getting his finances in order. Translation: he was avoiding me. Good. Mom had called twice. I had answered once. The conversation lasted 4 minutes and covered the weather, Sabrina's youngest kid's soccer game, and nothing of substance. We were polite strangers now, orbiting each other at a safe distance. Maybe that would change eventually. Maybe it would not. Dad had surprised me. He had shown up 2 weeks ago with a bag of high-quality wood screws and a new drill bit set. For the fence, he had said gruffly. We had worked side by side for an hour, not talking much, just measuring and drilling and setting posts. When he left, he had clapped me once on the shoulder. It was not an apology, we had already done that, but it was something. Acknowledgement maybe. Respect. The music swelled, then softened. I sipped my coffee and watched dust motes drift through the last rays of sunlight. I had spent 6 weeks thinking I needed to defend this house to prove its worth, to justify my decision to keep it. But that was never the point. The house did not need to be worth $400,000. It did not need to impress my mother or fit Sabrina's idea of success. It just needed to be mine, and it was. I thought about Uncle Raymond, sitting in this exact chair 30 years ago, listening to these same records. He had lived his life on his own terms, quietly, without apology. He had left me more than a house. He had left me a blueprint. True freedom is not about owning the prettiest house on the block or having the newest car in the driveway. Freedom is the ability to say no to pressure disguised as love. It is the power to choose your own pace, your own priorities, your own definition of success. I had protected Uncle Raymond's legacy. More importantly, I had protected myself. The record spun, the trumpet sang, and the coffee grew cold in my hands. Outside, the fence stood firm. The house, ugly, sturdy, beloved, sheltered me. I had successfully maintained the most important system of all, my life.